Do you ever feel that odd sense of discomfort when someone praises you? Too intensely, too conveniently, or in a way that seems strangely calculated? Maybe they call you brilliant, but there's a faint hesitation in their tone. Or maybe they compliment your success, but include a little sting like, "You're so lucky," or "You finally made it," as though your hard work and competence had little to do with it. Deep down, you begin to feel something's off. It's not just your imagination. That unease you're feeling is your mind's early warning system trying to decode the social dance around you. A dance that, more often than not, includes envy disguised as admiration, competition masked as concern, and praise weaponized into subtle attacks. In a world that increasingly prizes appearances over authenticity, where social media has turned compliments into currency and validation into a public spectacle, it can be exceptionally difficult to know whether you're being celebrated, tolerated, or quietly resented. But fortunately, the ancient Stoics offer powerful tools to help us navigate this labyrinth with dignity, wisdom, and clarity. Epictetus once wrote, "It's not what happens to you that disturbs you, but your judgment about what happens." This deceptively simple idea becomes incredibly potent when applied to relationships and social interactions. The Stoics didn't believe in suppressing emotion. They believed in examining it, understanding it, and aligning it with reason. That includes examining our response to praise. Why does a compliment leave us feeling uneasy? Why do we hesitate to trust someone who's being too nice? Why does something in their behavior not match their words? What we're really sensing in such moments is often a kind of social dissonance, a misalignment between someone's speech and their deeper emotional state. One of the most important skills Stoicism teaches us is discernment, the ability to judge not with suspicion, but with quiet wisdom and careful observation. Consider the phenomenon of the barb compliment, praise with an invisible hook. A coworker might say, "I didn't expect you to pull it off, but you did great." A relative might tell you, "That award must mean standards are getting lower." On the surface, these are compliments, but emotionally, they don't nourish you. They sting, they confuse, they provoke doubt. This happens because such praise isn't about lifting you up. It's about re-establishing dominance, preserving ego, or quietly undermining your self-worth while pretending to celebrate you. It's envy wearing a smile. The Stoics urge us to recognize such tactics, not with outrage, but with calm awareness. Seneca reminds us that true happiness is to enjoy the present without anxious dependence upon the future, and I would add, without anxious dependence on others' approval. When we anchor our self-worth to external praise, we become vulnerable to manipulation, to false praise, and to internal confusion. That's why it's essential to question not only what is said, but how it is said, and more importantly, why it is said. Now think about selective support, another subtle but powerful form of emotional manipulation. Have you ever noticed how some people only cheer for you when your success reflects well on them, but vanish when your struggle doesn't serve their narrative? A friend who celebrates your raise at work might suddenly grow distant when you need to vent about the long hours and the burnout. A cousin who shows up to your big celebration might mysteriously go silent when you're facing a setback. These are individuals who operate on transactional loyalty. Their support is conditional, calculated, and performance-based. The Stoics saw this clearly. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, emphasized that we should act for the common good, not for applause or recognition. A true friend, like a true Stoic, does not vanish when the weather turns. They remain. They support, not for gain, but out of integrity. This discernment of selective support is crucial, because when we know who truly stands by us, we are no longer emotionally dependent on those who don't. And then there's the body, the ultimate betrayer of hidden truths. Stoics placed high value on self-awareness and trained observation. While someone's words might congratulate you, their tone, posture, eye contact, or even the stiffness in their smile might reveal something else entirely. A handshake lacking warmth, averted eyes, a forced laugh. These are the giveaways that something deeper is at play. Stoicism teaches us not to react with paranoia, but to become calm investigators of reality. To ask, Are this person's words aligned with their spirit? Are they meeting me with genuine enthusiasm? Or are they masking discomfort, envy, or competitiveness? The Stoics taught that we must concern ourselves only with what we can control, our own thoughts, actions, and judgments, not the inner turmoil or emotional dishonesty of others. But by observing, we can choose our responses wisely and guard our hearts from subtle emotional sabotage. Jealousy often expresses itself through the poisons of comparison. A friend may congratulate you, but then pivot the conversation to their own exaggerated achievements. They might say, "Your speech was good, but did you see mine from last year? Or you're in that magazine. I was almost featured too." Their need to compare isn't about connection, it's about self-protection. Stoics warn us against falling into this trap ourselves. Seneca wrote that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. Comparison is one such imaginary suffering, an endless race on someone else's track. The Stoic path leads us inward. It reminds us that the only real metric of success is virtue. Did we act with integrity? Did we put in effort, courage, wisdom, and patience? That is where pride should root itself, not in applause, but in action. When we adopt this mindset, we stop letting others' insecurities infect our joy. And what about those who plant the seeds of discord? The gossipers, the rumor spreaders, the ones who, in the name of just being honest, sow doubt, confusion, or suspicion. These people are often driven by their own unresolved insecurity or unspoken envy. They create emotional smog in relationships. Stoicism urges us not to fight them with fire but to disengage, calmly and deliberately. As Epictetus taught, freedom is the power to choose. We cannot control their words, but we can control our presence in their world. We can choose silence instead of participation, distance instead of drama. Gossip dies when it meets a wise listener who refuses to feed it. Flattery, too, is a temptation. It feels good to be adored, to be praised with glowing words. But when compliments become too broad, too grand, too soon, "You're the most brilliant person I've ever met. You're literally a godsend." Pause. Ask, is this real? Or is this the siren song of flattery designed to lure you into trust, vulnerability, or emotional debt? The Stoics valued particular praise tied to virtue, to character, to specific actions, not vague admiration. Genuine admiration is rooted in honesty. Manipulative flattery is rooted in intent. By examining both, we can better protect our emotional boundaries and maintain dignity. Trust and accountability, a Stoic foundation for resilient relationships. When someone consistently fails to uphold their promises or fulfill their obligations, it is not simply a matter of forgetfulness or poor time management. It is a philosophical signal. It signals a disconnect between their stated values and their actual behavior. According to Stoic philosophy, the alignment of thought, speech, and action is the measure of a virtuous character. Therefore, a pattern of broken promises reveals a lack of internal harmony, a person governed not by reason and integrity, but by whim, self-interest, or emotional reactivity. In the Stoic worldview, trust is not blind, nor is it easily given. It is cultivated through consistent, virtuous behavior. True friends, as envisioned by thinkers like Epictetus, Seneca, and Marcus Aurelius, are not those who flatter you or please you momentarily. They are those whose conduct is stable, whose presence is dependable, and whose values are reflected in their choices. They are people who mean what they say and do what they mean. A trustworthy person shows up, even when it is inconvenient. They fulfill obligations not because they fear judgment, but because they value integrity and duty as virtues unto themselves. When they commit, they follow through. When they speak, their words are not mere wind, but reflections of their inner commitment to truth and reliability. Such individuals create a social environment characterized by psychological safety, a kind of quiet confidence that arises from knowing you are in the company of someone you can rely on. From a Stoic perspective, this is no small thing. Trust and reliability are not luxuries in human relationships. They are the invisible framework that supports meaningful connection. Without this framework, bonds become fragile and emotional stability erodes. Just as a building collapses when its foundation is weak, so too do relationships disintegrate when trust is violated again and again. Yet Stoicism does not merely call for us to evaluate others. It also demands we scrutinize ourselves. The same lens that we apply outward must be turned inward. Are we reliable? Do we keep our word? Are we the kind of person others can trust in a storm? Not because we are perfect, but because we are consistent, honest, and grounded. To navigate social dynamics with discernment, the Stoics advise us to observe patterns, not isolated events. One broken promise may be forgivable, but a consistent pattern of irresponsibility, manipulation, or excuse-making is a philosophical warning sign. It calls us to reflect not only on their character, but on the boundaries we are, or are not, maintaining. Trustworthy individuals are rare treasures, and they need to be recognized as such. The Stoics encourage us to invest our energy where there is substance. Hollow promises, flattery, or momentary charm may feel good in the short term, but they rarely lead to meaningful or enduring connections. True friendship is not founded on convenience. It is built on shared values, demonstrated character, and mutual respect. Modern Stoicism invites us to choose our social company with as much care as a Stoic would choose his own thoughts. If the people in your life are marked more by inconsistency than integrity, it may be time to reevaluate the emotional and ethical costs of those relationships. Conversely, when you find people whose words and actions are in harmony, who uplift others through their steady conduct and moral clarity, draw them closer. These are the companions that nurture your virtue, strengthen your resilience, and help you become a better version of yourself. In a world where loyalty is often transactional and promises are casually broken, the Stoic sees reliability as a moral anchor. Each kept promise reinforces the invisible thread of trust. Each act of integrity deepens the bond, and each moment of accountability becomes a building block in a relationship capable of weathering time, adversity, and change. Let us remember that we cannot control the actions of others, but we can control our response. We can choose to cultivate relationships with those who demonstrate virtue in motion, who act not from impulse but from principle. By surrounding ourselves with the reliable and the virtuous, we fortify our own moral landscape and create a life marked by peace, clarity, and purpose.